Hello, and welcome to episode 41 of Daryl Show Your Work. And this is going to be a relatively short video since it's going to be covering something fundamentally basic in system administration, but important nonetheless. So I wanted to build off of a subject matter that I slightly touched on in my last video, which is the principle of least privilege. So again, to go over what that is, that's ensuring that our users have just enough permissions to do whatever their job duties is, and to make sure that we don't have that privilege creep that may come when properly not onboarding, offboarding, or someone changing roles. So I wanted to touch specifically on assigning the right user permissions or the right permissions in general to when creating files. All right, so the first thing we're going to do to get started is I'm going to create a file from scratch for us to interact with during this video. So I'm going to start by using the touch command here, because that's what you would use when you want to just create a file from default. Excuse me, from scratch. So I'm going to say touch file one. That's what we're going to name our file. All right. And then I'm gonna do a list command here, ls, to check our current directory just to make sure that file one document is there, and indeed is there right here. All right. So the next thing that I want to do here is I want to start before I start assigning permissions, I want to check what the default permissions are. All right. In order to do that, we're going to do we're going to do a command called ll file one. All right, and so what this is going to do is it's going to list out the current default permissions of the file that we just created. So to kind of go through each line here, so this first line where the dash is, so if we were dealing with specifically with a directory, this would be a D to tell us that that we're working with a directory and we're setting the directory permissions here. But in this case, it being a dash, that denotes that we're actually dealing with a normal file. All right, so then moving on to the next set of three right here, where we see RW dash. So these are the permissions that are set for the owner of the file. So right now, the owner of the file is given read and write permissions and nothing else. So the three type of permissions that someone can have, or that an entity can have, or if we're talking about subjects and objects, that a subject or object could have, it would be either read, and that's to be able to display the contents of that file, write, and that's to be able to modify the contents of a file, and there's execute to be able to, if we're dealing with like an executable file, like an exe file or a batch file, those type of permissions is what you would need to assign to it in order for it to properly execute the file, or if we're dealing with a script, for it to be able to execute whatever is written into that file to be executed. All right, so moving on to the next set here. So these are the permissions for groups. So any group that this file may be a part of, it says what the group in general is able to do. So far the group has only read permissions set to it, and this last a set of three, this is reserved for everybody else. So anybody else that comes upon this file, this says what they are and aren't allowed to do, and the only thing that they're allowed to do is to read it. So basically, everyone outside of the owner is only able to read the contents of the file, but only the owner, as of now, is able to modify the write to it, and no one has any privileges to execute whatever may be in this file. So let's say we wanted to add some execution permissions to this. All right. So pretending like there's an actual script written into this. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the chmod command, which is short for change modify, and I'm going to say u for user plus and an x, and that's saying I want to add executable permissions here. All right, and then I'm gonna specify the file name, which is file one. All right, so this is going to add the executable permissions here just for the owner. All right, and everything else should change the same. Excuse me, should stay the same. All right, so we can see here after running this command that we started off with the read and write permissions for the owner, and then just reading for the group and just reading for everyone else. And now we have executable permissions here for the owner, and everything else stayed the same for the group and for everyone else. All right, so let's say that we wanted to then give everybody full privileges to the file. So we wanted to give everybody read, write, and executable permissions for this file. So what we would do, going back in my history here, we would use chmod again, but then we would specify, we would do a as an all equals rwx for read, write, and execute. All right, and then we would keep the file name. We keep basically everything else um, the same here for our syntax. Make sure my syntax is all right. I'm gonna hit enter. All right, now you see that we have everybody has that we changed it from how it was before. Now to everybody, everybody has that read, write, and execute for all three groups, for owner, for the group, and for everybody else. So everybody has full read, write, and execute permissions for this file. And let's say another way to verify this what this change, how we would be able to do that. We would do a list dash L and then put the file name, which is file one. All right, and that's going to give us what the current another way that we can see what the current permissions are, and that verifies the change that we just recently made to the file's permissions. So let's say that we wanted to take some permissions away, right? Let's say, okay, we came upon this document and it was determined that, hey, this has way too many permissions. This file has way too many permissions, and everybody just needs to have read-only permissions due to the sensitivity of this file. All right, so the way that we would take things back to just read-only for everybody is we would do and matter of fact, let's work with another file here. All right, so I'm gonna create another file. I'm gonna say touch, oops, file two. All right, so we're working with another file now. All right, now in order to assign read only to this, I'm going to say change modify, and I'm going to use a again, but this time I'm going to say equals r for read, and then I'm going to just say file 2 dash v, and so that's going to give so we went from, the default, the owner has read, write, and then everybody else just has read. Now everybody only has read. All right, so that's a way that we can assign just a single permission to everybody, and we could have substitute R with W or with E, depending on what permissions we wanted to add to the file. So then there's something called another way we could do this is if we know if we have an understanding of octational notation. So um, just kind of briefly, without going too deep into the weeds of what octational notation is, it uses 3 digits ranging from 0 to 7 to denote file permissions. So that's what you're seeing here when you see 644 or 444. So that's a whole lesson in itself. But let's say we knew like what the octational notation was for a certain set of permissions. So let's say we wanted to add dealing with the second file here, let's say we wanted to add owner permissions to this file, but using octational notations instead of that u plus x command. So we would do chmod again, but this time we would specify the octational notation. So 544 is what's going to give us that adding that execute permission to our owner. So I'm gonna say file 2 because that's what we're working with. All right. So now we see that that actually no, this actually added execute permissions. No, it did add, I'm sorry, it added execute permissions here to our owner. So R dash X, because in the middle here, of course the W would be here, but we didn't add that. We just added the X. So all right, so and we can confirm this too. Just go back in my history here. It's always good to kind of confirm our work. So we confirm here that indeed that those file that permission has been changed to now the owner has both read and execute permissions. Okay, so let's say, all right, we wanted to do something similar. Let's say now we wanted to add write permissions to the group. So we would do something similar. All right, so instead of 544, we're going to put 766, and this is going to again this adds a very specific combination of privileges to the files. These number combinations, it determines what's in what's for the permissions are set for the owner, the group, and the everybody else. That's why I said that's kind of another subject matter in itself, is understanding and memorizing the octational notations. And we're not going to go into that. It's beyond the scope of this video, but I'm just want to show what that looks like. All right, so now we've added write permissions for everybody in here. So we added now we've added write permissions for the owner. We added write permissions here for the group, and we added write permissions for everybody else. All right. Now let's say we wanted to remove write positions for all other users. So we wanted to keep write permissions for everybody else, but we wanted to take it away from here. All right. So going back in our history, so what we would change out, we would change this 6 to a 4, and so 764 should get us what it is that we want. And let's see. And now that took away that write permission, and so now everybody else outside of the owner and the group now only has read permissions. All right, so let's say now we wanted to assign full permissions to everybody. So kind of similar what we did with the end of our the last activity with file 1. But let's say we wanted to use an octational notation, octal notation, um, to do that with this file, to add permissions, to add all permissions for all users, whether it's the owner, whether it's everybody in a group or everybody outside the group. We would just say 777. So think, if you're a gambler, that's easy to remember. 777, that's jackpot. 777 gives you everything in terms of user permissions. All right. So I'm gonna hit enter, and jackpot, everybody has all permissions here, and that's how you do that using octal notation, um, with with file permissions. So last thing I wanted to cover here was something called UMass, which is a 3-digit value that refers to read, write, execute permissions for owner, group, and all other users. Its purpose is to set default permissions for new files and directories created without touching the existing files or directories. So let's say we want to see what the umask is for our current directory. So I'm going to write umask, all right, and it's going to give us a value of what our permission. So our value is 022. So if let's say we want to know, then what is that value as far as that octal notation? All right, so we would run umask again, but we would put dash s, and this is going to tell us that, okay, the owner or the user in this instance has read, write, and execute permissions. The group has a write and execute, excuse me, read and execute permissions, and all others have read and execute permissions. All right, so that's how UMass works when talking about looking at permissions for our for on a directory level. So that's going to bring us to the end of this video. Like I said, this is going to be a short video, but I just wanted to cover the basics of how we can set um, permissions to files in order to execute the privilege of, excuse me, the principle of least privilege, and ensuring that anyone that accesses files has the proper permissions in order to do that. And I mean, of course, you would assign this on account level as well, but this is how you assign that the principal of least privilege on a file level as well, so we can have layered security as far as who can do what within our enterprise. So please share, and subscribe. Most importantly, show your work. And until next time, take care of yourself and God bless.